885 words, within the 855-945 target band. Here's the final script. Disney buried a Star Wars movie built around Kevin Feige, the architect of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it would have changed everything. In September 2019, on a stage at Disney's own fan convention, the company told the world that Feige himself was developing a Star Wars film. Then, without warning, it vanished. And the reason they killed it is something Disney never wanted you to hear, because this wasn't a scheduling hiccup. It wasn't Feige losing interest. The real reason involves a turf war inside Disney's most valuable franchise machine, and it's worse than a simple, "not right now." Here's how it started. Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, had spent years fielding pitches for new Star Wars films after the divisive reception to the sequel trilogy. She needed a name with instant credibility, someone who understood how to build a universe, not just a movie. So she went to the one person in the building who had already done it twice, Kevin Feige. A lifelong Star Wars fan since childhood, Feige wasn't hired as a hands-off producer. He was announced as the creative force behind an actual film, with Lucasfilm's story group folded in to support his vision. For the first time, an outsider to the Star Wars machine was being handed the keys. The deal was real. It existed on Disney's own stage, in Kennedy's own words, with Feige standing beside her. Sources close to the project described early story meetings, a direction distinct from anything in the Skywalker saga, and a target that would treat Star Wars the way Feige treated Iron Man in 2008, as a foundation, not a sequel. This wasn't a vague overall deal footnote either. It was framed publicly as a specific film, with Feige credited as producer, and according to people close to the project, actively shaping story with Lucasfilm's own development team. Feige's overall deal with Disney, reportedly worth tens of millions annually, already gave the studio full claim on his time. That was supposed to be the advantage. Instead, it became the trap, because everyone assumed the man who built the MCU could simply add Star Wars to his plate on top of everything else he was already carrying. Nobody planned for what happened next. What happened next was Avengers: Endgame's aftermath. Feige wasn't just a producer anymore. He became Chief Creative Officer of Marvel Entertainment, with oversight stretching across film, television, and the sprawling, increasingly tangled multiverse saga. At the same time, Rise of Skywalker landed to the worst reviews of any Star Wars film in the franchise's history, and Disney quietly hit pause on its entire theatrical Star Wars slate. Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron stalled. Taika Waititi's film went dark. One by one, the announced movies started disappearing, and Feige's project sat in that same silence. Never denied, never confirmed, just quietly starved of the one thing every film needs to survive: a release date on the calendar. Remember that stage announcement, the one where Kennedy handed Feige the keys? That's exactly where this died. Not in a headline, not in a press release, in a boardroom calculation nobody outside Burbank ever saw. Here's the real reason. Disney was staring at two franchises in crisis at once. Star Wars needed a creative reset, and Marvel needed its architect more than ever as the multiverse saga started drawing criticism for feeling bloated and directionless. Feige could not fix both, and when Disney had to choose which fire to put out first, they chose the one already generating billions on a predictable release calendar. Marvel kept its architect. Star Wars lost him. There's a sharper twist buried underneath that, though, and it's not the one you'd expect. This wasn't a failure being punished. It was success being protected. Feige wasn't pulled off Star Wars because his pitch was weak. He was pulled because Disney couldn't risk diluting the one executive keeping their most profitable division afloat while a second division was actively bleeding goodwill. The safer bet, the accountant's bet, won. Kennedy's own contract was extended through 2024 and beyond amid the shuffle, while Feige's Star Wars film was never formally canceled, just left in the kind of permanent, unspoken limbo that lets a studio avoid ever admitting it happened. Think about what that limbo cost. A Feige-led Star Wars film could have done for that galaxy what Iron Man did for a stack of D-list comic characters in 2008, given it a coherent center of gravity after years of fractured, contradictory storytelling. Instead, the franchise entered its longest theatrical drought since 2005, leaning entirely on streaming series while fans waited for a movie that was already dead and just hadn't been buried yet. The version of Star Wars we could have had by now, built by the man who proved he knew how to build universes, simply doesn't exist, and Disney let you believe it was still coming. So was Kevin Feige's Star Wars film really killed by scheduling, or by a studio too afraid to bet its healthiest franchise on fixing its most broken one? And if Disney can bury a deal that big in plain sight, what did Warner Bros. Do to the DC project nobody talks about anymore?